Hello and welcome to AQS Quilt Week here at Spring Paducah 2018. And today I get to interview Pat Holly, who is the winner of the Janome America Best of Show.
Oh my gosh.
Can you believe this?
I can't. It was 2 days ago when the awards were, and I'm still kind of in shock. It's just such a wonderful award.
Well, so let's back up just a little bit. So this is your second Best of Show.
All by myself.
All by yourself. Well, your quilts are beautiful, and the ones you do with Sue are beautiful too.
Oh, yes.
But let's talk about this beauty. Okay. And so let's tell us first of all where the design came from.
So the quilt is called Turkish Treasures, and I made it after I took a wonderful trip to the country of Turkey. Although when I was trying to name it, my daughter said, don't name it Turkey something because people are going to think it's about a bird. So I said, okay, we'll call it Turkish. So and actually that daughter, my daughter Emmy, accompanied me on that trip. So we spent 2 weeks in Turkey, and it was a tour that included textile events. We went to weavers and dyers and block printers, but we also went to all these amazing places in Turkey, the Topkapi Palace, the Blue Mosque, the Hagia Sophia. We went to all the Roman ruins and cities, ancient stuff, Ephesus. And
these places that have walls that are this thick.
Oh my gosh, just amazing. And our guide was this wonderful man from Istanbul that if we wanted to know anything, he knew it. Plus, he had a master's degree in ancient battlefields of Turkey. So we would be somewhere and he said, do you want to hear what happened here? And we'd all sit down and go, oh yes, tell us. And we'd get a little lecture. So I learned so much about that beautiful country, and I wanted to pay tribute to that with a quilt.
And so the designs really came from the things that you saw while you were there?
I took about 4,000 pictures, which now that we have digital, we can just keep taking pictures and pictures. So I took pictures of the beautiful tiles and pottery, the carvings on the ancient ruins, and then sorted through those pictures and pulled out ones that were my inspiration. And then my technique means I have to draw the pattern. So and I love doing that part. That's one of my favorite parts.
Right. And now you're famous for your machine applique.
Yes.
And so I want to know, and I'm sure our audience wants to know, you make such a tiny little stitch that goes in onto the applique piece. What's your setting that you use on that?
So this is all done in silk. So I'm using a fine thread. I usually use silk threads or machine embroidery threads, and I use a smaller needle, a 7010 sharp needle, and it's all fused. So I fuse the applique down, and then I stitch around the edge with a little blanket stitch. Now there is a minimum. You don't want to get too small because then it just kind of chews up the edge of your applique. So I really never go smaller than 1.5 width and 1.5 length. The length that's not as critical as the depth.
Well, it always amazes me because you do that around all of those little circles.
I do.
And so when you are pushing on the pedal of your machine, are you going stitch, stitch, just really, really slow when you're doing around those circles?
And you do. And that's why you need to have a lot of control over that, and you're doing a lot of pivoting so that you maintain that zig in and out stitch so that it's kind of perpendicular to the edge of your applique.
And so do you use your knee relief?
I use my knee lift.
Oh, see, I wish I could get used to doing that.
Yeah, it really helps because then your hands never have to leave the surface of what you're working on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so there's a lesson for everybody in that, right?
Right.
Okay, so now then you got your applique done, and then you did some embellishing.
I actually did some handwork. Now, people will say, oh, you know, it's not a quilt unless it's all made by hand. It's like, well, I love my machines, and actually, I am using my hands. So this is
still is handwork.
Handwork.
Yes.
But I do like to once in a while pick up a hand sewing needle and do some little stitching because you can't get that look of individual little stitches with just the sewing machine.
And so you've used that like on these
that
pieces
gold
right
is around
here.
There.
And what you get then is you get the gold thread and a space in the gold thread that you can't get when you do stitch, stitch, stitch.
You just can't. The only way I've ever been able to sort of achieve that is if you really tighten your top tension and kind of pull up the bobbin thread. Say you're on a black fabric and you use a black bobbin, and then the thread is a real contrasting color. You can kind of pull up that bobbin thread, which you don't usually want to do, but then it will kind of look like little, but it didn't
well,
work.
the hand stitching adds a lot.
Well, it does, and you know what? It's very. I like holding that in my hands. And then you're not sitting at the machine. Yeah,
and the needle.
We do like that.
Sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about the quilting, because for the most part you used mostly straight lines.
Right. So one thing that I like to do before I put my applique on the background is embellish the background with decorative stitches. So my background fabric is stabilized, and I use a lot of times similar color thread just to add some texture. But what that does for when I go to quilt it is it provides me with the guidelines. So those lines I didn't have to draw any marked lines to quilt on.
You can just use
follow those stitch lines.
Sure. Well, it's beautiful. All right, now we're almost to the edge.
The edge.
Almost to the edge. And so tell us about the Oya, because when I was in Turkey, I sat down at a quilt conference with a lady who was doing Oya and attempted to do it. It's really needle tatting.
Yes.
And so tell us how you learned how to do that.
Yes. Well, first of all, I'd just say I love having something interesting going on the edge of my quilts. I think the edges are really important, and I want people to think about that's a part of the quilt. So I'm always looking for something unique.
That's sort of like where your eye stops, isn't it?
Yes. So it's like a little frame or something like that. So when I was in Turkey, I saw some ladies doing that. Now, I wasn't lucky enough to have them sit and teach me.
I was all thumbs, though, believe me.
But still, I know. But when I got home and I was thinking about this quilt, I said, I would like to see if I could learn how to do that. So I got some, and I do shuttle tatting and knitting. So I kind of know how to do some of that stuff. So I got some books, and if you've ever tried to learn that kind of a technique from a book, it's hard.
It's flat.
And you can't see what they're doing with the
hand
threads
movements,
and maybe how they're holding the tension. So I was determined, and I found YouTube videos in Turkish of ladies doing this needle lace, and I couldn't understand, but I could see what their hands were doing, and that helped.
You could see what they did with the thread and
how they
where
wrapped
held
it around.
them.
Yes. But right, this is basically with just a needle, kind of macrame tatting. It's all little knots. And then the other thing is, you have seen this, what the Turkish ladies do. Mine is sort of kindergarten level. It's really pretty primitive compared to what they do. They use much finer threads.
Really fine
They make
thread.
these beautiful three-dimensional flowers. Oh, it's just wonderful. And then they attach them to the edge of a scarf or a shawl.
Well, in a while back, we did a quilt chat, and we used Pat's quilt because of the Oya. And then I showed a bunch of the pieces that I brought back. Basically, the lady that was doing the stitching was selling her work.
Sure.
And so I think between the three Americans, we bought almost everything she had on her table. And they gave us a lei that was made out of Oya the night that we had the special. So if you want to see more of it, you can go to YouTube. And our channel on YouTube is Quilt TV. And look for the program that we did on Quilt Chat, and one of them was on Oya. Yes.
Well, and this is why I make these quilts, because look at what we're talking about.
Yes.
We're talking about something that maybe no one's ever heard of, that wonderful people are doing around the world.
I had never heard of it until I went there. Did you?
No.
And now look at the thousands of people that we've introduced to Oya.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Well, Pat, congratulations on another beautiful quilt. And I understand that it is going to go to the Quilt Museum.
It is.
So thousands and thousands of people will get to enjoy this quilt every single year.
Well, and I've said, having the quilts in the museum is such an honor, and so many people can see it. And if I kept it, I might enter it in some more shows, but then it would come home and it would be rolled up and stored in my studio or hanging on the walls that my cats and my husband can look at it. So this way, lots of people can enjoy it.
You're sharing it, and so you're introducing them to a lot of things having to do with the country of Turkey.
Yes.
Thank you for entering this beautiful quilt, and congratulations again.
You're welcome, and thank you, Bonnie.
And we hope that you'll enter your quilts at the AQS Quilt Contest. And if not, we hope we'll see you soon at an AQS Quilt Week.